And I am Ripon FFA President. My officer team and I are privileged to serve as your Masters of Ceremonies today. Today we are gathered to honor our veterans. On the 11th day of the 11th month, at 11 p.m. in 1918, an armistice or peace with Germany, the end of World War I, went into effect. This war, which claimed over 16 million lives, shocked the world and was more commonly called the War to End All Wars. While more war did eventually come, each year since the armistice of 1918, we have taken the time to reflect on the cause of world peace and the sacrifices made by those who have served in the United States military. At this time, please rise if you are able for the performance of our national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, performed by the Ripon High School Varsity Mixed Choir under the direction of Mr. Kenton Baker.
What say can you say for the dawn's early light, when so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose white stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight toward God. We watch with so gallantly streaming, and the rockets like that arms were singing out. It proved through the night that our was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet
standing and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Ripon High School Band, under the direction of Mrs. Sandra Paulsine, will now perform a tribute to the armed forces, arranged by Bill Moffitt. This song highlights each branch of the military by playing their theme.
introduce our guest speakers, Lieutenant Ann Newton and Chief Donald Newton, officers in the United States Coast Guard. Lieutenant Newton is the sister of our very own Mrs. Janet Hova, a math teacher here at Ripon High School. The Newtons have 39 years of combined service to our country in the Coast Guard and have been stationed up and down our coast in a variety of positions in Virginia, Connecticut, New Jersey, and California. We are fortunate that they were willing to record a video to talk to us about why they have chosen to serve and the various capacities in which they do so. Please enjoy the video.
Today we celebrate Veterans Day, and there is a reason why we celebrate it on November 11th. We do because the major hostilities of World War I were formally ended at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. I'm Lieutenant Ann Newton, originally from Waukesha, Wisconsin, and I'm approaching 20 years of service in the United States Coast Guard.
I'm Chief Operations Specialist Donald Newton, originally from Pascagoula, Mississippi, and I have served in the Coast Guard for over 20 years. Ann and I met while serving together in California in 2005. We had just enough in common where I was able to convince her to marry me in 2008. I originally joined the Coast Guard because I wanted an opportunity to travel and see the world.
I grew up sailing around Lake Michigan and always admired the Coast Guard and how they saved lives, and I wanted to be a part of that.
Although the reasons we joined were very different, we did not know if we would serve for 4 years or 40, but we eventually discovered that this was much more than a job. It would become a career that we would care deeply about, and one that we would devote nearly half of our lives to.
Over 53 countries around the world have Coast Guard equivalent organizations. The United States Coast Guard is considered by many around the world as the world's best Coast Guard. Many know about our largest mission, which is search and rescue, but we actually have 10 other missions that are also a large part of our service. We interdict drugs at sea, illegal migrants in boats, maintain the aids to navigation around the waterways, conduct law enforcement, port security, ice operations, marine environmental protection, and help protect living marine resources.
On an average day, the Coast Guard conducts 45 search and rescue cases, saves 10 lives, seizes 874 pounds of cocaine, interdicts 17 illegal migrants, investigates 35 pollution incidents, and facilitates the movement of nearly $9 billion worth of goods and commodities at sea.
What is amazing is that we do all this with just over 40,000 active duty personnel. This chart shows how the size of the Coast Guard compares to the other branches of the service, including the reserve components.
We both attended boot camp in Cape May, New Jersey. Boot camp can best be described as 8 weeks of mentally, physically, and emotionally challenging long days and short nights.
Not many people know the Coast Guard actually has large ships that travel all around the world. These are the cutters that Don and I have been stationed on throughout our careers. We have interdicted drugs at sea, boarded tons of fishing vessels, and did some search and rescue as well.
When we are deployed on these ships, we are at sea for several months, and we make port calls to refuel the ship and replenish supplies. This also gives us an opportunity to take in some local culture. These stars mark all the places where we have had port calls in over 17 countries.
This is a video I took when I was on the cutter Berthoff. To give you an idea, I took this from the bridge of the ship, which is 5 to 6 stories high up the water. A ship is our home when we are at sea, often for several months. We sleep, eat, and work on this, and imagine if your home was pounding through seas like this for 2 to 3 days. Don and I have been part of many drug interdictions at sea. We have incredible pilots and sharpshooters who are able to chase the drug boats who are moving at high speeds. They shoot warning shots first across the bow of the drug boat, which sometimes get them to stop. But many keep going, and then the sharpshooter in the helicopter shoots out the engines, which then stop the boat. Once our tactical pursuit small boat arrives on scene, the drug runners will try to sink the boat or set it on fire to get rid of the evidence. Over the last few years, the Coast Guard has averaged interdicting 200 metric tons of cocaine a year, which is valued to be about $6 billion worth each year. As a qualified boarding officer, I have boarded all kinds of fishing vessels, anywhere from 30 feet to even the biggest 200-foot fish processing vessels. We ensure that they have all the right safety equipment on board, such as life rafts, cold water immersion suits, emergency signal devices, and several other things. Commercial fishermen have the second most deadliest job in America. This video is from when I was on the 87-foot cutter. We launch our small boat out of the stern of the cutter. The boat is now heading over to a fishing vessel that is heading into port to offload its catch. It is completely full of fish. We instruct the boat to keep moving because it is actually easier for us to keep boarding the boat that way and it's more stable. Also, it puts the fishermen at ease knowing that they will not be late to drop off the fish. Boardings can take several hours. The longest boarding I did was up in Alaska and it took nearly 8 hours. On this day, the seas are calm, so jumping on the fishing vessel is easy. But when there are larger seas, you have to time it just right, and when the team tells you to jump, you have to do it without hesitation. Otherwise, you may end up in the water. The Coast Guard trains and operates with the Navy all over the world. This is a video from when I was on the 87-foot cutter and we did training with a tactical Navy unit where they were practicing coming alongside a vessel while underway. Both Don and I have been involved in over 1,000 search and rescue cases. Here is just one example of one where we towed in a broken down sailboat that was nearly 100 nautical miles offshore with a hurricane heading in its direction and would have been in that area that next day.
When I joined the Coast Guard, I was 21 years old. I entered on a 4-year enlistment that I knew would give me an opportunity to see new places, learn new skills, and meet other people from all walks of life. What I didn't know was that I would eventually learn what it means to serve. I became part of something greater that has been in existence since 1790. I learned what it meant to hold the public trust and selflessly act in the service of our country with honor, respect, and devotion to duty. Along the way, I have also had invaluable lessons in leadership, humility, success, and failure that I will carry with me for the rest of my life.
I serve to be part of something bigger than myself to help save lives and protect our country. I have grown tremendously as a person and as a leader during these past 20 years. I worked very hard to move up in the ranks and eventually become an officer so that I could make more of an impact. Thank you for allowing us to tell you a little bit about the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard's motto is Semper Paratus, which means always ready. We challenge each of you to always be ready to remember the importance of Veterans Day.
Thank you to Lieutenant Newton and Chief Newton for taking the time to share your thoughts with us, and most of all, your service. We will now hear America the Beautiful, arranged by Michael Sweeney and performed by the Ripon 7th and 8th grade bands under the direction of Mr. Sam Erickson.
Thank you to the 7th and 8th grade bands. Please rise as we take time for a moment of silence in honor of our veterans. Please remain standing as this will be immediately followed by the playing of taps by Micah Shaw and Jonathan Shaw.
Thank you to Micah and Jonathan. This concludes our program. Thank you for attending. And thank you to our veterans for their service.